we're going to get started. And as always, I'm going to go through the chapter. I may add some commentary in between instead of reading the whole thing. That format changes from week to week. So let's get started on chapter 3, the power of assumption. Man's chief delusion is his conviction that there are causes other than his own state of consciousness. All that befalls a man, all that is done by him, and all that comes from him happens as a result of his state of consciousness. A man's consciousness is all that he thinks and desires and loves, all that he believes is true and consents to. That is why a change of consciousness is necessary before you can change your outer world. Rain falls as a result of a change in the temperature in the higher regions of the atmosphere. And so, in a like manner, a change of circumstance happens as a result of a change in your state of consciousness. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. To really be transformed, the whole basis of your thoughts must change. But your thoughts cannot change unless you have new ideas, because you think from your ideas. All transformation begins with an intense, burning desire to be transformed. The first step in the renewing of the mind is desire. You must want to be different before you can begin to change yourself. And then you must make your future dream a present fact. You do this by assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled. By desiring to be other than what you are, you can create an ideal of the person you want to be, and then you can assume that you are already that person. If this assumption is persisted in until it becomes your dominant feeling, the attainment of your ideal is inevitable. The ideal you hope to achieve is always ready for an incarnation, but unless you yourself offer it human parentage, it is incapable of birth. Therefore, your attitude should be one in which, having desired to express a higher state, you alone accept the task of incarnating this new and greater value of yourself. In giving birth to your ideal, you must bear in mind that the methods of mental and spiritual knowledge are entirely different. This is a point that is truly understood by probably not more than one person in a million. You know a thing mentally by looking at it from the outside, by comparing it with other things, by analyzing it and defining it. Whereas you can know a thing spiritually only by becoming it. You must be the thing itself and not merely talk about it or look at it. You must be like the moth in search of his idol, the flame, who, spurred with true desire, plunging at once into the sacred fire, folded his wings within until he became one color and one substance with the flame. He only knew the flame, who in it burned, and only he could tell, who never to tell returned. It's a very interesting poem. But what he's saying here, and there's a lot of people that are like this. I think most of the people that I know that are having problems understanding how to use and leverage this information, this knowledge in their lives, they know mentally. They know about it, they've heard it, they've read it, but on an experiential level, it's foreign. But the thing here is that it doesn't need to be foreign, because you can look back at situations in your life and you can trace them back to moods that were at one point dominant. And so I remember a lot of times growing up, I was very, very insecure. I lacked a lot of, I guess the plain term here is self-acceptance, but I always made up these scenarios in my head where something just tragic would happen to me, and people would just feel so bad. And it was this really weird, diseased sense of desire for affection. But the only way I could find it was through my own sacrifice. And it's really weird, because I look at that and I see how many times I did in fact do things that hurt myself tremendously and got the very affection that I wanted. At that time, it's what I wanted. Do I want it now? No, absolutely not, because I'm not that person, right? But you can tell and you can trace circumstances back to ideals that have become dominant in your mental scape, in your mental landscape, in your common feeling states during the day, right? If any assumption is persisted in until, so in other words, if you persist in this idea that something is true, whether it's true or not, until it becomes your dominant feeling, or the thing that you feel the most, the thing that you feel to be true 80% of your day, the attainment of your ideal is inevitable. It's inevitable. The ideal that you hope to incarnate is always ready for an incarnation, but unless you yourself offer it human parentage, it's incapable of birth. And the thing is, we're always giving ideals human parentage. Every single moment of your day, you are dwelling in states of feeling. And in that, you are giving ideals human parentage, which in turn gives those ideals capability of birth. Because the more you give them affection and attention, whether they're for your benefit or for your detriment, your very giving of constant attention to them makes them become inevitable events. We never get what we want unless what we want is what we think about the most, because we really get what we think about the most. Your life is going to consist of experiences that are substances or trees or expressions of the narratives that you have within yourself every single day. You'll find that the very mood you go into your day with in the morning will determine the type of people that you attract, the type of people that you have conversations with. And I've seen this multiple times. I'll enter into a mood in the morning, and simply by entering into a mood, I will know who's going to come into my life that day. I may not know who they are, what their name is, or where they're from, how old they are, but I know what type of person, what type of message, what type of experience is going to come into my life, because it's the law. We always get what we are feeling about the most, not thinking about, feeling about the most. So my question for you is, what are you feeling about the most? What do you feel to be true 80% of your day? Just as the moth, in his desire to know the flame, was willing to destroy himself, so must you, in becoming a new person, be willing to die to your present self. You must be conscious of being healthy now if you are to know what health is. You must be conscious of being secure now if you are to know what security is. Therefore, to incarnate a new and greater value of yourself, you must assume that you already are what you want to be, and then live by faith. Faith, the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen with the eyes. You must live by faith in this assumption, which is not yet incarnate in the body of your life, in confidence, in total confidence that this new value or state of consciousness will become incarnated through your absolute fidelity to the assumption that you are which you desire to be. This is what wholeness means, what integrity means. They mean submission of the whole self to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and certainty that the new state of consciousness is renewing the mind, of which transforms. So what do we know? We know that the ideas we have, we think from the ideas that we have, right? We think from. Our internal narratives come from the ideas that we have. But where do the ideas that we have come from? Our state of consciousness, what we are currently accepting to be true in any given moment. So this means that by law of this fact right here, you're never going to get even the inspiration to act healthy or to do something healthy, let alone the capacity for persistence that it takes to build a habit of healthiness, if you do not assume that you are not already healthy. It is going to be impossible. Your body will fail you, because as we've learned in books like The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton, your body is very much responding to your state of consciousness. We must become the person that we want to be before the things that we want to have and do and be come into our life. We have to assume that we are already that person now. Well, if I can't just assume I'm a millionaire, right? I mean, I'm not. I don't have 6 zeros in my bank account preceded by a 1. Well, that may not be true, but that does not mean that you can't feel like a millionaire. It doesn't mean that you can't start surrounding yourself with millionaires and understanding how millionaires look at the world. Well, how can I feel like a millionaire if I'm not? Well, that's the whole thing here that we're learning, and that the outer world of experience is only a byproduct of our internal state. So it makes sense that you have no idea what being a millionaire means if you've never been surrounded by millionaires. You don't know how millionaires think. You don't know how millionaires feel. You don't know how they look at the world. It's no fault of your own. You just weren't aware. But now that you know that your world is a byproduct of your state of consciousness, we can give no other man the power to create our lives. Because the truth is, to embody, to manifest, to come into the success or achievement of a goal of being a person, it is imperative. If we want to achieve this goal quickly, efficiently, on the fastest track, which if you're like me, you don't want to take 20 years to do something that could take 1 if you do it the right way. But embodying the manifestation of this is completely dependent upon us previously and prior becoming that person, embodying the values of the person that we want to be. Feeling on a dominant basis like the person we want to be. So let me ask you this: if your life was perfect, how would you feel? Deeply, on a regular basis, 80% of your day, between breakfast and lunch, before breakfast, between lunch and dinner, how would you feel? Because the truth is, you can start to choose to feel that way right now, knowing with certainty that your world will soon embody those very characteristics. It's the law. And here's something that cannot be denied. This law cannot be shifted or changed, because the truth is, I'm not telling you something that you're going to learn how to do. You've been utilizing this your entire life. You've been manifesting and creating your entire life. You were just unaware of it. And that is the liberation, because we understand that I am not a victim of my circumstances, and the places that I have been do not determine where I can go. I get to determine where I go based on my assumption, my ability to become self-persuaded, and that alone. If I can simply become self-persuaded of a matter and persist in this self-persuasion, as delusional as it may sound, I can have full confidence and faith that the world will respond to me accordingly. And that's how I live my life. And I hope you can begin to as well. There's no order in nature corresponding to this willing submission of the self to the ideal beyond the self. Therefore, it is the height of folly to expect the incarnation of a new and greater concept of self to come about by natural evolutionary process. You're not just going to get rich one day. You're just not. That's not how it works. $1 million is not going to fall down your chimney and into your fireplace. This is not how it works. It is the height of folly to expect the incarnation of a new and greater concept of self to come about by natural evolutionary process. That which requires a state of consciousness to produce its effect obviously cannot be affected without such a state of consciousness. And in your ability to assume the feeling of a greater life, to assume a new concept of yourself, you possessed what the rest of nature does not possess: imagination, the instrument by which you create your world. Your imagination is the instrument, the means whereby your redemption from slavery, sickness, and poverty is effected. If you refuse to assume the responsibility of the incarnation of a new and higher concept of yourself, you reject the means, the only means whereby your redemption, that is the attainment of your ideal, can be effected. Refusing to take responsibility of the incarnation of a new and higher concept of ourself inadvertently rejects the very means that we can incarnate a new concept of ourself. We must become a new person. We must begin to accept new truths about our life. It's imperative that you crucify any aspect of yourself that is convinced that you are limited, because we cannot reject the responsibility of entering a state of consciousness in order to see its embodiment, because the only way we ever see embodiment is through states of consciousness. Imagination is the only redemptive power in the universe. However, your nature is such that it is optional to you whether you remain in your present concept of yourself, a hungry being longing for freedom, health, and security, or choose to become the instrument of your own redemption, imagining yourself as that which you want to be, and therefore, thereby satisfying your hunger and redeeming yourself. Oh, be strong then, and brave, pure, patient, and true. The work that is yours, let no other hand do. For the strength for all need is faithfully given from the fountain within you, the kingdom of heaven. I absolutely love Neville because he encourages us to take responsibility for our lives. You know, I was at dinner a while ago and we were talking about how many people in American society love to parade themselves as victims. And at the end of the day, I can guarantee you every single person that loves to parade and let everybody know about how victimized they are is not satisfied on a soul level. Because that's what we all really want, is satisfaction on a soul level. And as long as you are giving somebody else the power to create your life or control it, you're never even starting the process by which you can create a new life. As long as we consent to the idea, because it is an idea before it's a fact, as long as we consent to the idea that somebody else has more power than we do to affect our own lives, we will never truly see life as we'd like it to be, because the truth is you have inside of yourself the ability to create whatever it is you want, and that is your imagination. And you can choose to believe this or you don't. The truth is it's not going to affect me if you don't believe it. But if you do believe it, I can promise you this: you will see life completely changed. Because that's the law. You're never not going to get what you feel about the most. You're not. And there's absolutely nothing that any of us can do to change that law. So, if you're interested, start becoming more mindful of how you're feeling throughout the day. And observe cycles of experiences. Maybe you have a job and you find yourself in a similar situation with coworkers every month or every 2 weeks, or maybe it's relationships on a longer term level. And I talked a bit about this last week. Maybe you find yourself going through relationships in the same exact way, it's just different people. The truth is, that is absolutely 100% changeable. 100%. You can completely change that cycle, but it has to start with a new state of consciousness. Because what happens, and I was on a summit the other day and I was talking about this, our state of consciousness produces action. At the end of the path of states becoming ideas and ideas becoming inspirations to act and inspirations becoming actual actions, at the end of every action that we take, there's a reaction. And the truth is, the way we react to a situation is 100% indicative of our state of consciousness in that given moment. Right? So I told you this story last week about, how I was, when I was growing up, I was really insecure about my red hair. And every time somebody called me a carrot top or a ginger, I would react very negatively. I would get very upset. I would just get pissed. Eventually I knocked a kid out sophomore year because I was so tired. Right? And I'm not going to advocate knocking anybody out, but I'll tell you this much: after that, I was never offended again. But it wasn't because I knocked him out. It was more because I had become okay with myself. For whatever reason, I had become okay with myself. Therefore, I stopped responding negatively. And what did that do? That completely stopped people from calling me a fucking ginger. Excuse my French. As soon as I stopped reacting in a way that fed the experience stopped. So imagine how you can start changing your life by reacting new ways to old experiences. What if instead of at the end of a relationship that didn't work out, that seems to repeat itself, you go from, I'm not good enough to, well, what's this showing me? What can I learn from this? Instead of getting upset and depressed and whining and moping because another relationship ended, like I used to do, well, how can I learn from this? What's this showing me? How can I grow? How can I become a greater version of myself? And when you can learn to react in new ways to old situations, they're going to stop. Those old situations are going to stop, and situations that are in alignment with these newer reactions are going to show up. So the ball is in your court, my friends. And you can believe that or you can't. It's your choice. But if you choose to believe that, I give my full blessing to you in the knowing that you will come to understand this power. I don't think there's anything greater in life than understanding this law. Because if you understand this law, anything is possible. And this is something I promise.